On December 7, 2024, Ghanaians went to the polls and John Mahama and the NDC won the general election. And that meant only one thing. The NPP, the party that had been ruling the country for 8 years, found itself on the other side of the divide, meaning they are now in opposition and they are also minority in parliament. So the question is now what? What are they supposed to be doing? Are they just sitting in the chamber complaining about everything the government does and waiting for the next general election hoping to win? I used to think so, but the more I look into it, the more I realize maybe the minority might actually be one of the most important forces in the governance of the country. Let me break it down. If you live in Ghana or you live in a country where democracy is being practiced, then you've probably heard people say things like the opposition is just complaining about everything the government does, or they are just playing politics. And honestly, sometimes that is fair. But my honest question has always been, what exactly are they supposed to be doing for a party that has no power and access to enough resources? What exactly are their roles? Are they just there to criticize whatever the ruling party does for the sake of it? Exactly why I'm doing this video. I'm trying to understand the importance of the roles of the opposition party in the effective governance of the country. But what does it even mean when people say a political party is in opposition? So Ghana runs a constitutional multi-party democracy under the Fourth Republic, which started in 1992. What that means is that different political parties based on different ideologies have the capacity to take control over the governance of the country through a free and fair election. What that means is that not all political parties can form a government after a general election. So the party whose presidential candidate wins gets to form the government. That means every other significant party that didn't win or didn't form part of the government is considered to be in opposition. Now that we are all on the same page, let's get into what the opposition is actually expected to do. So one of the core mandates of any political party in opposition, which most of us take for granted, I think, which birthed the saying the opposition is just playing politics, is to hold the government accountable. In any functioning democracy, power must be questioned, it must be scrutinized, and when necessary, challenged. Here's why. You see, the thing is, without that pressure, power becomes comfortably dangerous in the hands of whoever holds it. So the NPP, who are currently in minority or in opposition, are serving as the watchdogs. They ask the questions you and I wouldn't bother to ask. They draw attention to government decisions that otherwise might go unnoticed. So every bill the government brings to parliament, every budget the finance minister reads, down to every policy the executive announces, the job of the minority is to interrogate it, ask questions, demand evidence, demand clarification, and challenge any assumptions if necessary. We saw this in action during the appointments committee vetting process in early 2025. When President Mahama's ministerial nominees went before Parliament, it was the NPP's ranking members who grilled them on their qualification, on their assets, and their track record. Some uncomfortable questions were asked. All what they were doing is to make sure that the people President Mahama is appointing to be in charge of the affairs of this country are capable of doing what they are being appointed to do. Some say it's obstruction, but to me, if done right, that's not obstruction, that's accountability in its full form. Now, here's something I genuinely didn't appreciate before I started getting into this topic. The opposition isn't just supposed to criticize and reject everything the government does, or the work doesn't just stop at just criticizing. A functional opposition must present itself as a credible and ready alternative to the ruling party or the ruling government. What that means is that they must give an alternative that they think is a better solution to what they are criticizing. Because then if you are just criticizing without giving an alternative, then it will look in the eyes of the citizens as though you are trying to obstruct developments. And there are few ways they do this. One is publishing their own policy proposals, their own budget alternatives, and their own vision for the country. That's why after every State of the Nation's address, you hear the opposition say that address does not reflect the true realities of the citizens. So they will deliver the true State of the Nation's address in due time. Another way the opposition can present itself as a ready alternative to the ruling government is through the committee system. Let me explain. So Ghana's parliament has various committees, including the finance committee, the health committee, the energy committee, and others. So for every committee, the majority, which is normally the ruling party, appoints a chairperson, and the minority appoints what's called a ranking member to be on that committee. And normally that ranking member is a senior member of the main opposition, and their job is simple not in terms of easy, but simple in terms of they have one thing in mind: to deeply understand that domain. So if it is the health committee, that ranking member needs to understand all the policies in that domain that the current government proposes, and they track what the ruling party is doing in that domain and actively participate in committee hearings. And what they do in those committee hearings is they critique decisions, and then they offer alternative perspective to the policies being proposed in that domain. All of this is done with one goal in mind: to position themselves as a government in waiting, ready to step in and govern if their party wins the next elections. If you ask me, that's some serious preparation, and that's a nice way to position yourself or to appeal to the general public as a better alternative to the ruling party. Another important role the opposition plays is amplifying the voices of citizens who feel left out or underserved. The truth is, elections are won by majorities. That's a fact. But Ghana, or any country that practices democracy, is made up of everybody, including millions of people whose candidate didn't win. And those people still deserve to have their interests represented. So, for example, the NPP received millions of votes in 2024 general elections, largely from their strongholds in the Ashanti region and other areas. Now, if a government policy unequally affects those regions, it is the NPP's job, who is currently in opposition, to bring it to attention through the appropriate channels. And sometimes people misinterpret this as tribalism, but if you ask me personally, I don't see this as tribalism if it is being done right or an attempt to divide the country. I see it as a fundamental principle that ensures governance serves every Tom, Dick, and Harry in Ghana. Low-key, it also helps test whether the government's policies are actually as popular and beneficial as they claim. This is another thing that caught me off guard, and it's something I believe many of us genuinely take for granted. The opposition actually plays a vital role in protecting Ghana's democracy. Think about what a democratic country without a strong opposition actually looks like. No pushbacks on policies, no one asking the hard questions, no one demanding clarity or challenging assumptions. That would essentially mean the ruling government gets to pass whatever law he wants, spend however he wants, and appoint whoever he wants. Well, if you ask me, that's chaos. So it's safe to say that the opposition has a mandate to make sure we continue to enjoy the peace we have in this country by making sure no government acts like they own the country. So a weak opposition is not just bad for the losing party, it's low-key bad for every single Ghanaian. So in all of this is how I think a good opposition party should act, or a good opposition party should position themselves. A good opposition party must not just criticize government actions, but also they should be able to offer alternative policies that are credible, that are evidence-based, and relevant to the realities of the citizens. I mean, what's the point in criticizing if you don't have a better option? Because here's one thing that has become very clear to me: when the opposition rejects every policy, dismisses every initiative, and frames every action of the government as a failure, something begins to feel off. The opposition begins to lose its own credibility, and it starts to look as though they are less interested in national progress and more interested in scoring political points. That goes to say a good opposition party must also sincerely hold the government accountable, and not just for political advantage, but because citizens' welfare depends on transparent government, and they are in the unique position to ensure that. So if you ask me, that's a big mandate and it shouldn't be taken for granted. They should sincerely hold the government accountable. One more thing that stood out for me is that being opposition does not mean rest period, because you are still serving the country, you are still serving the public, just that you are doing it in a different way. It is therefore the responsibility of the opposition to make sure resources are distributed equally, that every good policy benefits every living soul living in every part of this country. So if you ask me, the role of the opposition is just as important as that of the ruling party, because what it really means is that a strong opposition actually makes the government better because they hold them accountable. Understanding all this has genuinely changed how I listen to political conversations or political discussions in this country. It's no longer enough for me to just hear, or for the opposition to just say this policy is wrong. My follow-up question now is, what is your solution? What's your alternative? So maybe the next time we see the minority leader on the floor of parliament pushing back on government bills, or a ranking member challenging a minister in a committee hearing, or members of the opposition at press conference voicing their displeasure about government actions, let's ask ourselves a few honest questions. Is this within the framework of what a party in opposition is supposed to do? Are they raising a valid concern? Are they offering an alternative that is in the interest of the public, that is in the interest of the citizens? Are they speaking for people whose voices aren't being heard? If the answer to all these questions is yes, then to me that's the opposition doing what they are supposed to do, and they have every right to do so. Thank you for watching, and I honestly want to know, do you think the current opposition is doing its job well? All the things they are doing, do you think it's in the framework of what a political party in opposition is supposed to do? Let me know in the comment section. My name is Fred, and if you made it far to this part of the video, then I want to believe you like this kind of videos and you would want more of this. So I'm asking for just one favor, and that is to subscribe to this channel and like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.